You can never whip these birds if you don't keep you and them separate. I found that out in Birmingham. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
The Civil Rights era was one of the largest black empowerment eras, but today we will only focus on one example of this era. How did blacks achieve equal accommodations in Birmingham? In the year 1963, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Reverend Shuttlesworth of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights teamed up and staged events and conferences to combat against separate but equal accommodations. Public areas such as parks and playgrounds began to close to avoid integration. Black students were outraged about the fact that Birmingham didn't have desegregation of schools plan. Also, African Americans were not being fairly hired. In addition with that, public facilities were not up to par in comparison with the whites. In reaction, African Americans began to protest against this and demanded for desegregation of lunch counters and public facilities and establishing fair hiring practices and a biracial group. Just because it was a peaceful campaign, it doesn't mean it didn't have any enemies.
The so-called Negro movement is a part of the attempted takeover of our country by the lazy, the indolent, the beatniks, the ignorant, and by some misguided religionists and bleeding hearts, and all being led by the politicians who stay in office by appealing, remember, not to reason, but to the most votes.
The police brutality was horrendous during the marches and the protests. The police had their hands all on us and our children. They arrested protesters, held them with no bail. Hoses were sprayed on children, and sometimes they would beat us up with batons or threaten to arrest us and take us to jail. While doing sit-ins, even our white allies like us were intimidated, beaten, and harassed. What they didn't know was that our methods of white supremacist brutality increased the boiling anger inside us blacks and wanting to
God
fight.
still has a way of wringing good out of evil. And history has proven over and over again that unmerited suffering is redemptive.
Not only adults were harmed at the price of integration.
I decided to participate in the walkout because as a black girl in a poor, or rather say, underfunded high school, I wanted the integration to happen so I could attend a better one and receive better education. I was outraged when there was no plan established for the integration, so we all decided to make a statement.
When I was around 9, my parents asked me to participate in a campaign. And while we were singing gospel songs, the police and the firemen sprayed hoses on us. It was a bit traumatizing for me at first, but people seeing this actually made us have more support and received more donations, and more protested with us, so it was worth it in the end. Violence, angry mobs, protested and even bombed streets in Birmingham. It was chaos upon chaos. Many were hurt during this process. But the good thing is, within 90 days, they desegregated lunch counters, fitting rooms, drinking fountains, restrooms. After 60 days, they hired blacks for salesmen and clerk spots. And within the next 2 weeks, they established a biracial committee, and the arrested blacks were released from jail.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free. And when Americans are sent to Vietnam or West Berlin, we do not ask for whites only. It ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops. It ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation, such as hotels and restaurants and theaters and retail stores, without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the street. And it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and to vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. In short, every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated.